would entertain a motion to go into executive session for labor negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 4056B.
So moved.
Second.
All those in, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Counsel Morris?
Yes.
Counsel DeBrito?
Yes.
Counsel Foss?
Yes.
Counsel Frankie?
Yes.
Counsel Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
One issue is the Zoom link that Steve sent me doesn't have a link to it.
I think Steve's working on that.
Should have.
Thank you.
Should have. He says that the link you sent doesn't have a link. The email you sent didn't have a link, but it had to have.
It did. Rebecca's on.
Counsel Green is on.
Everyone to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available by the door or online on the City of Waterville website. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Do any councilors have a conflict with any of the items on the agenda tonight? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to the manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, the state of the city is good this week.
I think it's off.
Yep.
It's
there you
off?
go.
How's
Now
that?
it's on. Yeah.
Okay, I can never tell. The state of the city is good this week. And what you've been seeing downtown with respect to the work on Main Street is all progress in a very positive direction, even though they are behind what you would call their paper schedule. They do have a deadline of the fall of 2022 to finish the work. As I've said to you before, there are no milestones in this contract because milestones would cost more money, pressing the contractor to meet those dates. But when we get to the end of the contract, they have a date certain that they're supposed to be completed by. Every day after that, they pay us a fee for being late. So the pressure is on the contractor to get the work done. There's been a labor shortage, as you're aware, but we see other contracting jobs in the region of Central Maine shutting down because they're completed, and we anticipate that that's going to provide more workers to come to downtown Waterville and do the job here. Let's see. Just as an aside, Colby, under the terms of our agreement with the North River Company for the lease of the parking lot on the south side of Spring Street and the west side of Water Street, Colby has leased that from North River Company. There may be some questions that you're asked about that by the public, but that's completely allowed within the lease that the city has with North River. And we were given proper notice, which is called for in the lease. So it's all legitimate. We've had some incidents of COVID in the workforce, and as a result, we have quarantined certain employees. In particular, our Parks Division is 7 people, and we've lost 6 of them to quarantine because of one testing positive. They are not vaccinated, so they are quarantined. The vaccine mandate that came down from the governor, as you know, that affects the EMS operation has now shown a carve-out for EMS dispatch operations, public safety dispatch operations. From Washington is something that we don't anticipate seeing for maybe 30 to 60 days, but we are told that it is going to affect municipalities, even though the speech that announced it referenced only private employers. It's going to affect municipalities in Maine because the Department of Labor in Maine is funded by OSHA, and they pass on. I think that's all the good news I have for tonight.
All right.
Chair.
Right.
Steve, along that presidential mandate, 30 to 60 days out, what's that look like for the city? Because I've got the Department of Labor's, the Maine Department of Labor's website sitting right here, and it says, just like you would say, as informed the Maine Department of Labor, that forthcoming COVID-19 vaccination requirements will apply to public sector employees in Maine. I don't want to bore everybody to death with it. Do you have a sense of how that's going to what kind of impact it's going to have on the city as a whole, as far as its employees and the teachers?
I don't know about the school department, but with respect to the city itself, I don't think it's going to have a serious effect on us. It will cost us some money to have people tested, but because it's either be vaccinated or be tested, working. As long as they get tested, what is it, once a week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once a week. So I don't think we're going to be hurt by that. The one that's going to hurt us is the EMS mandate for vaccines. Because as I've reported to you before, we've already lost one firefighter EMT because of it through a religious objection. And we have a call force of 15 or 16 people, of which we could lose 5 or so. And if we do that, that's going to hurt us because we rely on them on a per diem basis to come in and be that 6th person on a fire shift, or to respond to multiple alarm fires, and to replace firefighters who are on vacation or sick, or just on an overtime, and there aren't people available on an overtime basis. So we lean on them heavily, and the chief is concerned about that, but our hands are pretty well tied.
Okay. Have you been given any guidance on the testing side of it? If day 8 comes and the employee hasn't tested, if the employee needs to quarantine for 2 weeks, or is we to let them go, or do you know any more particulars about the testing side of it?
Under the mandates?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
No, we don't.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the regular meeting, the consent agenda. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these are items routine in nature and do not require discussion. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yep.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to unfinished business. Ordinance 192-2021. Before we do that, I'm going to make a motion to take all items on the agenda by title only.
Seconded.
Can I get a roll call on that, Patty?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yep.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay. Ordinance 192-2021.
An ordinance providing for amendment to public safety ordinance safe zones.
Move to adopt.
Second. All right, any discussion? Steve, can you update us on where we stand on this from the last meeting?
The municipal safe zones. Am I on? Thank you. We have a complicated situation with the municipal safe zones. I posted for all of you an update on the map of the safe zones that we have in the city. And around all of the statutory safe zones, there's also a 500-foot marijuana safe zone. We've put 3 options in front of you to consider. One is to modify the buffer around the safe zone from maybe 500 to 400 feet. Another is to allow for exceptions, which were undefined as to what the basis of an exception would be in the original ordinance that we prepared for you, but required that you had to cite reasons for why you were making an exception. And then the third alternative was sort of an in-between that allowed for exceptions under certain specific circumstances, and there were 3 measures that you would have to apply for those exceptions. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what they were, but they had to do with the amount of the amount of a lot that was touched by the buffer zone. If it was less than 10%, I think, of the land area of the lot, then it would be eligible for an exception. And I don't remember the other ones right now.
Bill, Lee, can you just let us know if you have any further concerns, where your opinion stands on this at the moment?
Sure. The matter you have immediately before you is to create a notice requirement. And what had originally, for if you're going to create a safe zone. And to be clear, we only have one municipally created safe zone. That's what was created by the council for the homeless shelter a month and a half or 2 months ago. And just this has been so much confusion here. The municipal safe zone, it could be a particular lot, it could be a portion of a lot. For example, it could have been the enclosed fence, the enclosed area where there's a playground at the homeless shelter. It could be very small, or it could be as large as a lot. When you create a safe zone, what then happens is, either under state statute or in other ordinances, that creates a buffer area around that zone where certain activities are prohibited, or if it's a matter of somebody engaging in criminal conduct, it's an aggravating factor. It creates a higher level of offense. So what I have proposed to you regarding the particular matter before you, the amendment to the Public Safety Ordinance creating a safe zone, is to adopt the notice provisions that seem to be recognized by everyone, that if in fact a safe zone is going to be created, that is an impact on property owners within 500 feet of that zone. And as you know, we have the 68 College Avenue problem. If we ever create another safe zone, and this is adopted, it would require the city to send out notices to all property owners within that 500-foot buffer to let them know that there's going to be a public hearing to consider the creation of a safe zone, which could have an impact on someone's ability to open up a business, for example, a marijuana business specifically. So my recommendation to you on this particular matter, because there are other matters further on in the agenda, is to adopt it as amended. And the amendment to it strikes out much of what you had before you, and will deal with the notice provision, so that if in fact you in the future decide somebody wants to create another municipal safe zone, that property owners that will be affected by such a creation will receive advance notice and the opportunity to appear at a council meeting, a public hearing at a council meeting, to express their concerns or positions on the matter.
Are there any questions from the council?
Claude,
I got it.
Councilor Clepack has his hand up.
Tom?
Thanks, Bill. So help me understand what you're saying a little bit here, if you will. Let me give you a couple of scenarios as possible ways out of this specific situation that we're in right now, is it at all possible for us to amend the safe zone, the boundaries of the safe zone, so that it stops at that 500-foot barrier? So the safe zone is implemented around that property and excludes that postage stamp that is causing all these problems here. Number one, is that possible? Or number two, is it at all feasible? And I kind of asked Steve about this before, but I didn't really I had to leave before I got a good answer. Is it possible for the city to just buy that little slip of property so that it's not part of that parcel any longer, and the city will just protect it so nothing actually changes in reality, but we don't have to change any ordinance or something like that?
What are you, purchasing what piece of property? That's not clear.
Am I not understanding what we're talking about here?
I think it would still create the 500-foot zone around it, no matter if we bought the property or not.
The little slip.
The little sliver.
overlap.
Yeah, because the 500-foot boundary, the way I understand it, is around the building and the playground.
The safe zone that was created is the
Yeah.
boundary line of the homeless shelter property,
Yeah.
okay? That by itself then creates a buffer.
Yeah.
The buffer is not created by the safe zone, it's created by a municipal ordinance that says that there's a 500-foot buffer around any municipally created safe zone. That language is contained in the marijuana ordinance.
Sure.
Okay.
And so my question here is, if the city bought part of that parcel that is pushing the 500-foot into 63 College Ave, so that it backed it off to the edge of 63 College Ave, while still having, the practical, all of the actual practical aspects of the safe zone around the bulk of the property intact. Is that a way to solve this problem without having to amend ordinances here?
Now, that was originally what I was trying to do, and I went out to take a look at the property. The playground itself on the homeless shelter property
Yeah.
is at the point closest to 68 College Avenue.
Uh-huh.
That's the problem.
And it's right, that is within the 500 foot.
That is correct, yes. I didn't know where 68 College Avenue was at first,
Yeah.
Mr. Kleeback, and so I went out to just, because I was thinking we could take that safe zone and just make it be the playground itself, not
Yeah.
the entire lot, and we get around the 500-foot problem.
Yeah,
When I
yeah.
went out and took a look at it, unfortunately, I discovered that the playground is at the point closest to 68 College Avenue. So we can't do something like that in this particular situation.
I see.
That would be nice and simple, and that's what I was hoping.
Yeah, right, that's what I was hoping to. Okay, thank you.
Sure. If I may,
Go ahead, Bill.
other questions, I'll wait.
Counselor Frankie.
Just to be clear, what's before us right now is just to amend the ordinance to create a procedure for declaring safe zones. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's all that's before us right now.
Right, well, if you amend it as has been proposed, what was originally presented had some conflicts in it, and what I've done is greatly shortened it and simplified it, and I hope that I am clarifying a rather confusing subject.
Well, I have to say thank you, Bill. I think going step by step and taking care of putting the public notice into the ordinance is, I think, exactly what the first step should be. So I'm in support of this part of the amending the ordinance, and I think we should just move right ahead with that, because that's the simplest, easiest thing to do right off the bat.
Well, so I just want to be clear. So if we pass this ordinance tonight with and I assume the language that's in this package is the amended version that Bill's talking about, so we'll have to offer that as an amendment.
Correct.
That does not solve this gentleman's problem. We would have to go back and amend the marijuana ordinance, which is not on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
It is on the agenda, 207. 207/2021.
Okay, it's a new business.
Correct.
Okay, so does anybody want to offer?
So moved,
Second.
So that's the amended language.
as amended.
Any discussion on the amendment that's been offered? Counselor Green, I saw you had your hand up.
Well, I had a question that I didn't get to answer before, and that has to do with the 400 feet versus the 500 feet. So I'm wondering, because that seems to be a critical issue.
That'll actually be part of the discussion on the new business item regarding the marijuana ordinance, because that is actually in the marijuana ordinance. It has nothing to do with this particular ordinance. Correct, Bill?
Partially and partially incorrect, because this proposed ordinance, the public safety, the one before us right now, says that you're going to give notice to those who are within 500 feet of the declared municipal safe zone. If your inclination is to amend the marijuana ordinance later in the agenda when you come to it, to say that the buffer around a municipal safe zone is going to be 400 feet rather than 500, then I would suggest you further amend the public safety ordinance matter before you to say that the 500-foot notice requirement would be changed to 400 feet.
Well, can we just say that whatever it references in the marijuana ordinance, and that way if that ever changes, it just moves? That we don't have to do it again?
Did you hear that, Bill?
I did. You're going to have to say specifically that what the number of feet is. Now here, and let me just say, you could give this the first reading tonight and say 500 feet, and if you're and then when you get to the marijuana ordinance,
Okay.
if you're inclined to say 400 feet rather than the 500 in the
We would just make that
marijuana
amendment.
ordinance. Take that first reading, and then when
This is a second.
ordinance 192 comes before you 2 weeks from now, you can then just very simply amend that 500 feet to 400 feet then. You
This
don't
is-
have to do it tonight,
this-
but you should do it by the time of the final reading.
This is a second vote, and also I would say the notification of a butters doesn't necessarily have a safe zone. I mean, what's the extra 100 feet? It doesn't. It's really just a sort of a, you
Good
know.
point. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to offer that we change as part of the amendment, that we change it to people within 400 feet will be notified, I would entertain that as an amendment.
So moved.
So the amendment Rick is offering is the language that is in our packet plus changing the distance for notifying abutters to 400 feet. Is there a second to that?
Or not.
Second. Any discussion on that amendment?
So, just to be clear, we're amending the ordinance to 400 feet, even though we haven't changed the actual safe zone amount yet from 500 to 400.
Correct.
Is that correct?
We can also do that at a future meeting if that makes people more comfortable. But if you're inclined when the discussion comes up to vote on the marijuana ordinance to change it to 400 feet, then I don't see any reason to object to changing the language in this ordinance to 400 feet.
Well, it does seem like we've got the order wrong, because my question is really about, you know, is 500, what do these numbers mean in terms of the actual safety? Quite aside from trying to get someone a marijuana license, I mean, we have to consider what we're doing here in terms of the safe zone. And so is 400 feet, so my question really is for Billy. I mean, where did that 500-foot number come from? Is that like a recommendation or a state?
The marijuana committee came up with that number.
Okay, right, you had mentioned that before. Okay, so, Bill, in your suggestion that we amend it to 400 feet, you know, was that, what was your thought behind that?
Well, the thought behind it was that at an earlier council meeting, I heard multiple councilors express some sympathy toward the lessee of 68 College Avenue, who had been told when he signed the lease, before he signed the lease, that in fact such a business would be legal, and that was correct advice from the code enforcement officer at the time. But subsequent to that, next month and a half later or so, the city council then created a safe zone, and the 500-foot buffer from that safe zone encompasses the 68 College Avenue property, and therefore making that proposed use illegal.
Right.
And there was a feeling that, hey, gee, this, he was relying on what the city had to say. Now, this is purely, it's not a legal matter per se. It's how do you feel about it? What has happened to this person that he ends up being 450 or 60 feet from the safe zone that we created. If you don't want to change it, then do the 500 feet, and then 68 College Avenue will not be able to get a permit. If you are inclined that 68 College Avenue ought to be able to get a permit, the simplest way of accomplishing that is to change the 500-foot buffer in the marijuana ordinance to a 400-foot buffer. By the way, and that's measured as straight line. It's not your driving distance. It's straight line from closest to property lines. Driving distance might be 1,000 feet, but straight line is obviously less.
Mm-hmm.
And
I guess my feeling is that I'm leery of like chiseling away as a buffer that was decided probably for good reason, I'm assuming, and so if there's ever a case
That's
where
a
an
big
exception
assumption.
might be made, certainly it would be this one. So I guess I'm inclined to leave the buffer as it is and make an exception in this case, but I realize we're just voting on the amendment right now of the regarding notification, so that's certainly important.
before I go to Councilor Frankie, I would also remind people the homeless shelter requested the safe zone not to prevent a legal business from operating, but so that there would be extra punishment if you're caught breaking the law within the safe zone. That was the reason for their request. And I'll go to Councilor
Yes.
Frankie.
And to make sure people are clear on this, with that safe zone, the buffer around the safe zone for illegal drug trafficking is 1,000 feet. And we're not talking about changing anything there. The creation of a safe zone has multiple purposes: to prevent, to make it an aggravated offense if there's drug trafficking within it, and in the marijuana ordinance, it's to prevent marijuana uses from being within 500 feet of that safe zone, even though the marijuana business itself is legal. Quite a difference between illegal drug trafficking and somebody engaging in illegal business.
Councilor Frankie?
I just want to say that I don't think we should be tinkering around with the size of safe zones and what the marijuana ordinance has already did set out. These are the kinds of tinkering that this council loves to do, and I think it's better to have a good solid rule in place and stick.
I guess I would just point out we're elected to tinker with the ordinances and the laws of the city. That's basically our job description. And we created this ordinance to begin with. So it's certainly within our purview to change it if we want. And the marijuana committee, unfortunately none of them are here. My feeling is that one, people were nervous about these businesses coming, so I think that they were overly cautious about how they laid out the ordinance. And so I think it was expected at some point that we were going to revisit probably many things within the ordinance. But with that, I'll see if there's any other comments or questions from counselors or anybody from the public. Counselor Green.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that changing the ordinance from 500 feet to 400 feet is something we want to do. I just don't think we should be doing it in order to grant a license to someone. We should be doing it because we think that 400 feet is adequate protection. So, you know,
Sure.
And I do think of adopting the amendment to this ordinance and making an exception in this case to grant a license to the individual who kind of got caught in the gap of information and timing of the ordinance.
Counselor Foss.
Chief, if I could, do you find that you have more criminal activity inside the safe zones or outside of the safe zones?
Well, this is the only safe zone.
Sorry, Chief.
As was stated earlier, this is the only safe zone within the city, and it's only been a safe zone for a couple of months, so we have no criminal activity in that particular safe zone. The other one is statutory, and that's the 1,000-foot one that Bill talked about, where it elevates a drug charge to one class higher if it happens within that 1,000 feet.
Do you feel like 100-foot make a difference there? Being that close to the police station?
I don't think it's going to make a big difference, whether it's 400 feet or 500 feet.
Okay. Nice and easy. Thanks.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, are there any from the public? Is there just the one attendee, Sarah? I can't.
Yeah, it's just Amy.
Okay. All right, so we are going to vote on the amendment. The amendment is the language that is in your packet, plus it reduces the notification of abutters to 400 feet rather than within 500 feet. Can I get a roll call on the amendment?
Council Morris?
Point of order, we've got two amendments, I think, don't we?
He combined them into one amendment.
They are combined.
So, yes?
So, I'm sorry, Eric, could you repeat that, what the amendment is that we're voting on?
So the language that's in your packet, which eliminated exceptions because the city attorney feels that that is indefensible in court. And then it also changes the radius for notifying abutters to 400 feet instead of 500 feet.
But I thought the original language was 500.
We had that discussion and Rick changed his amendment to reflect the language in the packet plus changing the distance to 400 feet. So that's
Okay,
what...
So what's before us now is putting in the notice requirement and changing the distance to 400 feet for the buffer zone. Is that correct?
Right, and that just refers to who will be notified that radius to 400 feet. So this has no effect on that.
But I have a question.
Counselor DeBrito.
So do you want to, right now it says 500, so all the people that are included in the 500, shouldn't they be getting a notice as well? Because it's only going to be covering 400. And the original is 500, so all those, the people in the 500 are going to be left out.
If you
From
vote yes
400 to
on this
500.
amendment.
Yeah. So we should keep it at 500.
But what we're discussing, changing the marijuana ordinance so that the radius around the facilities for a safe zone is 400 feet. And Bill suggested that we change the language in this to match up with what we may do in a few minutes with the marijuana ordinance.
But that is if we do that.
Meaning that we may have to come back and revisit this one if we don't change the marijuana down to 400 feet.
So why not leave this as it is? If we're going to have to come back.
Well, because if we don't change this now, and 10 minutes from now we vote to change the marijuana ordinance to 400 feet, then we have to come back and revisit this ordinance at a future meeting. So it's really just a matter of, if you think that you're going to be in support of changing the distance for the marijuana safe zone down to 400 feet, there is no reason to not vote in favor of this amendment. Councilor Green.
So the amendment in the packet says 500 feet of the property line from religious worship and related religious activities, and 400 feet from areas designated as a safe zone. So it looks like that change was already made in what was put before us.
That's the marijuana ordinance that she's reading out from.
You're reading the marijuana ordinance, not, this one is just the who gets notified that we want to create a safe zone.
Okay, I apologize. That's just, it is complicated, and just want to be clear. All right.
Okay, I'm just going to clarify this one more time. What we're voting on is the amendment Councilor Foss offered, which reflects the language that is in your packet, which has changed from last week. It eliminated the exceptions because our attorney told us that we couldn't defend that in court. And it changes the radius of who will be notified that we're trying to create a safe zone from 500 feet to 400 feet. So we'll notify abutters within 400 feet of any proposed municipal safe zone. All right, I'll take a roll call on the amendment.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yeah.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
No,
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Move as amended.
Second. Any discussion on the order as amended? Seeing none, can I get a roll call, Patty?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yeah.
Council Klepak,
Yes. Yes.
Council Green,
I'm going to vote no on the amendment.
Council,
I mean, on the motion.
okay, Council Foss.
No.
Yes.
What?
Just a point of clarity, Bill. The changing an ordinance requires a 2/3 vote. Is that just of members present or of the entire council?
An amendment, it's a majority of members present. And
This-
if you're dealing with a 2/3 type of ordinance amendment, for example, a zoning ordinance, that's 2/3 of members present, based on number of members present. Whether it's
Okay.
a simple majority or a supermajority.
So Council Green is a no, is that correct?
Well, this is a tough one because there are two things rolled in together. So I'm going to vote yes. I'm sorry.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
no,
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
All right, moving on. And so now, correct me if I'm wrong, Patty, but we should act on, before we act on this gentleman's issue, we need to act on the amendment to the marijuana ordinance. We're just going to make you come here every 2 weeks.
Well,
You get the name of your business in the paper a lot, though.
the action on the issuance of the license from Waterville will need to be pushed back. And the first reading of the marijuana ordinance would, in fact, if successful in its amendment, would be the first reading of a change to the marijuana ordinance. At that point, this still wouldn't be in effect to be able to approve this marijuana ordinance tonight. So at that point, the
We need to vote
council,
twice.
we would need to have a second vote, which can't take place at tonight's meeting. We can only do one vote per evening.
That's what I thought. And I apologize that this process has been so uneven.
This is embarrassing.
It is. And it's, whether you want a business to operate or not, that person deserves a prompt reply to their request for a license. And so I apologize for the way that all of this has played out. I think there's no point in discussing this because we, at the moment, still cannot approve this gentleman's license until we amend the marijuana ordinance. So I would entertain a motion to table this. There's no reason to make him come back for the next meeting. It would be the second meeting in October.
If I may, would we want to postpone this until after we do the reading of the marijuana ordinance? And then we'll know whether it's viable going forward?
I would move that.
So we're going to table this until after item 207-2021.
I think that's clearer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can decide at that point whether we want to table it again until October. Because if the marijuana ordinance is not changed in the first reading,
Correct.
then there's no reason to have you come back.
Going
So
with-
is there a second on the motion to table this item until after ordinance 207-2021?
Second.
Can I get a roll call on that?
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council DeBrito?
Yeah.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes,
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay. I'm also looking.
Mr. Chairman, there is one important thing that I left out of my report that if you can give me a minute.
Yep. Go right ahead, Steve.
Chief Massey is here tonight with Sergeant Lincoln
Ryder.
Ryder. Thank you. And they have a very important announcement to make about a major project that the city has had underway for about a year now.
Pleased to announce this evening that we have completed the firearms range / training facility. We started this project back in 2016 just to identify available city property that might be able to qualify and have a range on it. So it's been a long project. Sergeant Ryder has been sort of the architect through this whole project. He's worked closely with the city engineer to make sure this project has stayed on track. So it's been a very long project. I want to thank everyone for the support, but we're at to that point now where the range is completed. We have about 200 feet of fencing that has to go up, but other than that, the range is completely done, usable at this time. And the range won't be used just for firearms qualification. We're going to use this range to do other types of training. That's why I want to call it a training facility that will entail shield training. It'll allow us to do our pepper ball, our tire deflating training. So there's going to be a host of training that we'll be able to do at this range. So I'm hoping for at least the next couple of years, until we get a good sense of just how much training that we can do out there that we were not able to do at the Winslow range, to give us a good idea of the training days that we would need at the range when we incorporate all of our training out there. So it's an exciting time for us. We finally got the space and you know, the range that accommodates that type of training where we didn't before. And it's critical for us to have all that training available. So again, we're very pleased. The project went well, and we're finished. So we're looking forward to our firearms qualification that will be coming up in probably the next 2 or 3 weeks before it gets too cold, and that'll be the first time that the range will be used.
Good deal.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Resolution 193-2021.
A resolution providing for renewal of a special amusement license to Cancun LLC, doing business as Cancun Mexican Restaurant.
Move to adopt.
Second. I guess I'll go first. Hector is here, and Hector and myself and the mayor and the chief of police and the city manager met to discuss some concerns we've had about his operations. Hector was very open to making some changes, which would include, one, the police are going to go in and meet with his employees and just make sure, go over best practices, you know, for making sure that they run a tight ship over there. We also talked about him potentially hiring some professional security, and, you know, some other items to hopefully make people around him feel safer when they're leaving their places of work at night, and to alleviate some of the other concerns that we've heard. I feel comfortable with the actions that Hector has said he's going to take, and so I'd be happy to approve this special amusement permit tonight. And with that, I'll open it up to any other counselors who might have any questions. Councilor Foss.
Should we attach those notes as a memorandum to this, just for reference, later reference down the road? Not as an amendment per se, but an attachment, just so we've got notes on it.
I mean, I'm sure it will be in the minutes.
Well, unless it's in a motion and a vote, it really isn't in the minutes. I could mention that you talked about it, certainly.
And I got a question.
Councilor DeBrito.
Would I be able to ask for an amendment to add the notes that you guys spoke about? I mean, the stuff that he said is going to be required to do, or a suggestion that he was going to do? Because without paper, without tracking, is like.
And these permits, these licenses come up for approval every year, and I think that we just wanted to have a discussion with Hector. Personally, I'm not ready yet to put requirements on him that are not on other businesses, but I think that he understands that if we come back here in a year and nothing has changed, that those requirements may come, or he may not get his special amusement permit or his liquor license renewed.
Okay, yeah, I'm not asking for a requirement, but you just said that he said he would do this, 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 and this. So I would like to see that in writing.
As a note to
As a note
as a memorandum.
attached, yes, to this.
How do we go about doing that?
Bill? If Bill's listening. Or Patty,
him-
do you have any advice on that?
We could make a notation on the business license itself. We only keep those for 3 years, though.
Right, but what about keeping it just on this as an attachment to this resolution?
Then it would be a requirement on an addition to the resolution that would require certain criteria to be met.
No, that's too much. I'm not going down that road.
I'm not sure what would happen if those criteria
No.
weren't met
No, that's-
down the road.
Can we hear from Hector?
Hector, you want to come up?
I'm not really good at speech, but I will try my best. We have a plan, which I spoke to you, Mr. Massey, Mr. Steve, the other day, and plan A is try to educate my people from the police department to see how can we offer better job safety for everyone. And the plan B is hire a private company or security company. Or the worst case scenario, hire one of the police officers. So,
And you're good with everything that was discussed? You don't see any hiccups?
yes, sir.
In other words, if we come back in next year and everything's gonna be a whole lot of different,
Yeah,
because I don't want to put any requirements. I don't want to attach anything to this, We'd give you a good shot at and see how we do,
okay.
you
I'll do my best I
so.
can. Thank you very much.
Counselor DeBrito.
No, my question is not directly to him, but also, like, are we gonna revisit, so the next time we revisit this, it's in a year?
I mean, there.
So what's the follow-up to what he said he was gonna do?
The follow-up is we're gonna know, the chief, of course, knows if there's phone calls about this particular business. We will, in a year from now, if there continues to be a problem, we can not approve. But it's also part of the process. If you're gonna not approve somebody's liquor license or a special amusement permit, you have to have a good reason for it. And you also have to, I think, have at least, this is something that we've had a discussion with Hector. We're laying the groundwork so that we would have, ground to stand on if we have a problem if the problem still exists a year from now, Hector can't say, we never discussed this, I didn't know. This is us giving him an opportunity to hopefully clean things up a little bit, and then come back a year from now, and if nothing has changed, then.
Worst case is, chief's here a lot, we can ask every 3 months if we want,
Okay.
Kind of, some of this falls on us, all of it's gonna fall on him,
Okay.
well,
So
and
I'm
Hector.
Yeah, because I'm just trying, I'm not against redoing the license. I totally understand. I go to Cancun too. College students, we need that. So I'm totally not against it. My thing is the security there. And I would like to see the bouncers there.
Okay.
I would really like to see the security increase there.
Okay,
So yeah, I'm totally not against it, but I just the accountability of the city actually
Okay. Thank you.
is what I'm looking for.
thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Hector.
Thank you. Green had a question.
Counselor Green?
Yeah, is there any reason we can't just put this in the minutes and then there is a record of this conversation? I mean, that seems like the simplest way to do it.
I think that's,
Yep, I think
Yep.
that's what Patty said, is she's gonna make a notation in the minutes of this particular discussion.
Correct.
Okay, great. That satisfies me then.
yep.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call.
Thank you, Hector.
Thank you.
Counsel Morris,
Yes.
Counsel DeBrito,
Yes.
Counsel Klepak,
Yeah.
Counsel Green,
Yes,
Counsel Foss.
Yes.
Counsel Frankie,
Yes,
Counsel Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, order 197-2021.
An order providing for acceptance of a 2020 FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion? Can I get a roll call?
Counsel Morris,
Yes.
Counsel DeBrito,
Yes.
Counsel Klepak,
Oh, yeah.
Counsel Green,
yes,
Counsel Foss,
Yes.
Counsel Frankie,
yes,
Counsel Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Order 198-2021.
An order providing for acceptance of a 2020 FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion? Can I get a roll call?
Counsel Morris,
Yes.
Counsel DeBrito,
Yes.
Counsel Klepak,
Yes.
Counsel Green,
yes,
Counsel Foss,
Yes.
Counsel Frankie,
yes,
Counsel Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business, Resolution 204-2021.
A resolution providing for issuance of a second-hand license to Daniel Taylor, doing business as Comics, Cards, and Collectibles.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion? All right, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
I love Dan's store. I went there today. Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Iron Man still rules. Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 205-2021.
A resolution providing for establishing an ARPA committee and appointing its members.
Move to adopt.
Second, Steve, can you just summarize what this is for anyone who doesn't know what ARP is, and also perhaps discuss the purpose of this committee?
It's the American
Recovery,
not
Rescue
recovery,
plan.
rescue plan?
ARPA. Thank you. American Rescue Act. And the city has received roughly $1.7 million to be used for a variety of purposes to help the community and those in it to recover from the impacts of COVID-19. The council decided to establish a committee to organize how and in what proportions that money might be distributed and make recommendations to the council to that effect. This resolution and the committee charge that's attached to it sets up the framework for that to happen and identifies the nature of the people that would be appointed to the committee.
Any questions or discussion from the councilors? Counselor Frankie?
Yes, just I'd like to offer a suggestion to the mayor. His statement I thought was extremely broad-based and really I think hit the nail on the head. I did notice that his suggestions for committee members tended to be a little bit on the institutional side. So just as offer a suggestion, Jay, that you consider a couple of groups that frequently get overlooked in our discussions. That would be the young people and the senior citizens. So it might be nice maybe to reach out to the student council at the high school and see if they'd like to participate in something like this. And then, look, there's plenty of senior citizens out here, I think, with some good ideas. So maybe we can get a volunteer from that group as well. Anyway, just a couple of suggestions, Jay.
Just for the record, Jay's not here. But Steve, Jay hasn't offered an actual list yet, right?
That's correct.
So I guess all we're voting on tonight is forming the committee. And so certainly if you have any suggestions for membership, forward those along to Jay. He'll be the one making the appointments, obviously, for our approval.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
With respect to his suggestions about the types of people that might be members to the committee, they're not accounted for in this proposed charge to the committee, which is on the floor as part of the motion for the resolution. So I would suggest that if he wants to add those, that he should do it by amendment.
Then I'll offer that as an amendment.
I'll second that.
And I have no objection to it.
I just want to be clear on what is being offered. I'm sure Patty does too. To see if somebody is interested, not necessarily that one of them should be appointed, and also that we should try to find an older person to be on the committee.
I believe his intent was that someone from the
Oh, yeah, I already know types of-
student body of the high school
Mhm.
and someone from the senior community of the city. I don't believe it was more specific than that, other than how I might find people like that.
I agree.
Yes, I more or less thought that I didn't want to tie the mayor's hands, so these were just a couple of suggestions that I think he may just not have thought about when he was making his list of, I mean, it's easy to come up with a list of the institutions and stuff around, but it's a little bit more difficult to think of a little bit outside the box. That's all I'm asking there.
Elizabeth? Yep.
Elizabeth Leonard, Ward 4. I'm just curious if the public can have a little bit more information about the types of, I mean, Councilor Frankie seems to know their institutions, and, you know, we had a public hearing 2 weeks ago. I'm just curious, who are these members representing, even if they haven't been named specifically? I think it would be helpful to the public, who obviously has a lot of interest in how this funding is spent.
I'm gonna read the charge for the committee to you, because I don't believe that was, Steve, is that available on the city website? Or did it come into our packet too late?
Posted today.
But is it on the city's website and available to the public?
It will be tomorrow morning.
I'm just gonna read this for everybody. The purpose of this memorandum is to provide the council with a proposed charge for a committee or subcommittee it intends to establish. Purpose: the committee is charged with advising the city council on allowable uses of federal funds available to the city by way of the American Renewal Plan Act of 2021, and how it proposes that the funds be allocated among the various eligible categories of recipients. In accomplishing its mission, the committee is being charged to carry out the following tasks: become familiar with ARPA through reading, tutoring by the state level government experts, and input from legal counsel as required. Consider establishing an allocation matrix based on eligible uses and eligible recipients, or some other appropriate manner of expressing allocation recommendations that addresses the eligible uses in relation to impacted populations in Waterville. Identify organizations through which funding allocations might be transmitted that will have a multiplying effect on the impact of the funds so allocated. Formulate a series of recommendations to the council for allocations that cite amounts, recipients, purposes, estimated multiplying impact, and timelines for distribution and implementation. Membership shall be comprised of 2 counselors and an unspecified number of persons who may or may not be residents of the city, who hold influential positions in the following sectors of the community. 1, economics, banking, business finance, or financial analysis. 2, nonprofit organizations that service Waterville residents, families, and businesses. 3, the Waterville faith-based community. 4, the Waterville business community. 5, philanthropic organizations that participate in funding Waterville-based projects and programs. 6, the Waterville public and private education communities. So that would possibly cover the students. And 6, the Waterville healthcare community. Range of authority. The committee's role is to advise the council and provide the council with recommended allocations of ARPA funds based on research, understanding, conclusions with respect to the projected benefits and detriments of proposals, and its professional and personal judgments regarding proposed allocations of uses of the funds. The committee is authorized to expend and expected to reach out to all resources it determines to be valuable to its understanding of the parameters of ARPA, and to all parties that would be eligible recipients of ARPA funding. It is not authorized to make promises or enter into verbal or written agreements purporting to represent the city. That would be up to the council. The committee is an official body of the city. As such, it is subject to Maine's Freedom of Access Act 1 MRSA Section 403, and must meet in a location accessible to the public, allow the public to attend its meetings, publicly post the dates and times of its meetings, and keep minutes for the public record. No member of the committee may represent themselves or a family member, their business interests, or those of a business partner, or participate in a committee deliberations or vote on any matter having to do with any such interests. When such a conflict occurs, the affected committee members must declare the conflict, recuse themselves from the meeting, and vacate the meeting space until the conflict ceases to exist. Reporting. A counselor who is member of the committee will be called upon at each regular meeting of the council or at a frequency otherwise determined by vote of the council to report on the committee's progress towards offering recommendations to the council. Sunset. The committee will dissolve when so declared by the council, but no later than December 31st, 2023, unless extended by vote of the council for a specified term. Any questions?
What was the point of the public hearing?
Well, what came out of the public hearing was establishing the committee, which will follow up on what was discussed at the public hearing. As I frankly don't think the public hearing was an adequate enough discussion of such a complicated matter. And there will be probably many more before any funds that are going to be allocated are going to take a vote of the council. So there will be ample opportunity for more public discussion about how these funds are going to be used. Any comments from the council?
Frankie's comment about, making efforts to include younger people as well as older people. And I think that what I would like to see as an amendment here is some language that seeks a diverse representation of Waterville's people and interests. So perhaps we could add a statement to that effect and include by COVID, which we don't really have here. We have people who hold influential positions in the following sectors of the community, but it would be nice to include some people who actually have some experience of the impact. So I guess I would propose that we add that this committee should reflect a diverse cross-section of Waterville residents, including people impacted by the
I need to do a point of order because we do have an amendment on the floor unless Councilor Frankie wants to combine.
That's what I was going to ask.
Then
Do
we
we
do
want
have the amendment on the
right?
floor.
Do we want to combine that into one amendment?
I'm happy to add that to what I've suggested. That sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
Okay. I can't keep track of the amendments, clearly.
Or we got you.
And Patty, are you clear on what is being?
You need a second on I think you need a
So,
second on the addition.
My understanding is Councilor Frankie began with to approach the mayor to include youth and seniors from the community in the committee. And then Councilor Green added to add a diverse cross-section of Waterville residents and those impacted by COVID.
And Councilor Green, did you want to second Councilor Frankie's amendment?
I seconded already.
You did?
Yeah, sure.
There we go. Now we can move on.
It was already seconded, Eric. And if I accept Councilor Green's suggestion, then that her suggestion doesn't need a second. It just becomes part of my amendment.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call.
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor DeBrito?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Said yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
You were
you.
muted.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Move as amended.
Second. Any discussion on the resolution as amended? Councilor Frankie?
I just want to reiterate what you said before, Eric, that this is forming the committee is simply the beginning of the discussion, and there should be ample opportunity for the residents to weigh in on this and present their opinions. Thanks.
Yes, including the fact that all of the meetings in the committee will be open to the public. So can I get a roll call, Patty?
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council DeBrito?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Mr. Chairman? Right here.
His mic's on.
You see, it's not that easy. I have two points to bring up to you. You still have two decisions to make. One is what who the members on the committee will be, and the other is what amount of money the committee is going to have to work with.
Those will be discussions for the next
For
meeting.
later.
Later. Resolution 206-2021.
A resolution providing for establishing hours for voter registration.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion? Patty, can you just summarize what the hours will be?
Generally, it'll be regular business hours at City Hall, 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and at the polling location at the Waterville Junior High on Election Day, November 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we won't have any additional evening hours for voter registration for this election because it's just not busy enough to warrant.
And Patty, what are the city offices that are up for vote?
Wards 1 and 7 have City Council and Board of Education members, and all wards have 3 charter amendment questions, and then there's the state ballot as well.
Do you know how many items are on the state?
3, I believe, or 4 maybe. I think it's 3
I think I
though.
saw 3.
Yeah.
Councilor Klepak.
This is for this year only, is that correct?
Correct. Every election, I have to set the voter registration hours. So for odd-numbered years, I generally don't have extended evening hours because there's just no traffic to warrant additional hours for staff. On even-numbered years, you know, for gubernatorial elections and presidential elections, we generally have extended hours for at least a couple of evenings a week before the election.
So to a novice like me here, you will tell me that this is just a very standard resolution that you're running.
Correct. Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Councilor DeBrito?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Ordinance 207-2021.
An ordinance providing for amendment to marijuana ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second. And so just to summarize, what we're doing is lowering the radius around safe zones for marijuana businesses from 500 feet to 400 feet. Any discussion? Councilor, is it DeBrito? DeBrito.
Yes. I would like to hear from somebody from the marijuana, like, why did they do the 500? Because that's, like, the question in my mind, like, why did they do that?
I don't believe, Chief, you were on that committee, weren't you? Kind of? Do you have any insight?
Please say yes.
Yeah, this was the first safe zone being established, so there's no precedent for it. So I think there was discussion about the statutory requirement of 1,000 feet that elevates drug crimes, and I think the general feeling was to do 500 feet as a safe zone. Again, there was really no precedent for us to take a look at to come up with that 500 feet, but I thought it was a reasonable
alcohol, do they have a safe zone as well? Like a bar, like,
Patty, there are limitations on where liquor, on-premise liquor,
Well, on-premise liquor consumption, there are restrictions around churches,
Sure,
can't be within 300 feet, that sort of thing.
oh, so it's 300?
300,
That's
it's, yeah,
only
it's
if you're
different requirements
consuming it
for on-premise
on-site.
alcohol.
Okay.
Right,
So, but is there offers beside the marijuana?
no.
No? Oh,
The on-premise alcohol is in state statute, 300 feet.
so there is no buffer to that?
Mm-mm.
And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but my feeling, because I was on the council, I think just myself and Councilor Morris were the only two on when we enacted the marijuana ordinance. And my feeling was that a lot of the stuff that's in there was, we knew we were going to end up revisiting at some point because this was all new. So, you know, to Councilor Green's point earlier about tinkering, or Councilor Frankie about tinkering with ordinances, this one was sort of one that was meant to be tinkered with as we saw how it actually worked, you know, once it was implemented.
Yes, there was some discussion about that. Again, since this was the first time a safe zone had been created, there was some discussion that we might go back and revisit that, depending how it worked out, to give us some time to actually get into place so we could see whether or not the 500 feet was adequate or other changes that might be needed.
And have we had any major complaints about retail marijuana
No,
or the medical marijuana businesses for that matter?
no.
No, yeah, I don't think very good. Because it operates just like an alcohol place. I mean, if it's not around, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Green.
So in the ordinance, it mentions 500 feet from a school and 500 feet from a place of worship. And then,
Those are references to state statute requirements.
okay,
But we already have the 10,000, don't we have the, we already have the state requirement already on it.
Yes, and they're mentioned in our marijuana
Mhm.
ordinance as well. The only one at play is the
The bu-
municipal safe zone that we're discussing.
so what's written in the ordinance regarding those other entities is dictated by state statute. And this safe zone, if I understand it, is the only thing that's being introduced specifically in the marijuana ordinance?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so presumably the 500 feet was adopted because that was in state statute already.
Correct.
And this is just for municipal safe zones, to which we only have the one.
The one.
Right.
So nothing else changes by changing this to 400 feet, except the one that we have currently.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
3
peop-
months ago.
And future
And
ones.
others that we may adopt,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Any other questions from the council?
No, thank you, Chief.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
No,
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
No,
Council Thomas.
Yes,
The vote is 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Chairman, if I may.
two opposed, Patty.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said 5 and 0. It was 5 to 2.
5 to 2, thank you.
5 to 2.
My math isn't very good tonight, sorry.
And so for the record, it does take, it takes a super majority of councilors present to change an ordinance, so a 5 to 2 vote is a first. I thought it did, Bill. No? To change an ordinance?
To change the zoning ordinance does, and to
Ah,
pass the budget takes a 2/3 vote.
oh, okay, so this is
General ordinance
different.
is passed by simple majority.
Okay,
of those
gotcha.
present.
Either way, it passed.
Yes,
But we do have to vote a second time.
yes.
And now this would bring this gentleman's item back up.
I'd like to bring Resolution 185, 2021 back from the table.
Right. So 185, 2021 is a resolution providing for authorizing issuance of a marijuana retail license to Frank Bereni, doing business as Marijuanaville.
And so we still can't act on this gentleman's item because we need to take the second vote on the marijuana ordinance. So I'm going to recommend that we
Move to the next meeting.
table this
Table to the next
to the
meeting.
next meeting.
185.
And Rick made the motion and
Second.
I'll second.
Perfect.
Welcome to City Council. Hope the seats are nice.
But I'm glad, I'm glad we went through the process and now we understand like what's going on with the marijuana and the retweaking of the zoning. So I'm really glad that you guys came and we actually went through this process. So like there's the next person that goes through this, we already have something in place.
It's
And
always,
we already discussed it.
it's always fun to be the guinea pig. I'll take a roll call on the motion to table. Oh,
But to be clear though, we're unlikely to have to deal with this unless we issue another municipal safe zone.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
correct.
Right.
All set?
Yep.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council DeBrito?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
This is just a,
I'm sorry, I thought,
it's a motion
I
to,
thought we voted.
it's a motion to table. We had tabled it just to, like, yeah. So this is a motion to table this
Yes.
gentleman's license.
Okay, yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
But to be clear, we're tabling it until the next meeting. Right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I'll vote for that, yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
We'll see you 2 weeks from now. We'll bring snacks. All right, so we're on to ordinance 208-2021.
An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second. Steve, can you explain?
Yes. This is in regard to a portion of the property This is in regard to a portion of the property that the Waterville Junior High School is on. It's to construct a building for storage purposes, and that portion of the lot needed to be rezoned in order to allow that to happen. You sent this to the planning board a couple of meetings ago, I believe. They turned it around quickly and it's back in front of you.
Steve, we received an email about a possible conflict of interest, but honestly, that's a separate matter, right? Like the rezoning of this property would have no effect on who is or is not the contractor.
No, you mean on the council? There's nobody on the council that would have a conflict that I can see.
It has something to do with a contractor who might be performing work over there. Did you, were you not copied on this email? I think you were.
I think, Eric, the issues raised in the email are things that are gonna come up in the site plan and, the eventual, bidding and contracting of the work. I don't think that it's necessarily, pertinent to whether we rezone, or not, the property itself. Is that what you're asking?
Right, and so I just wanted to be clear to address this gentleman's concerns, to let him know, one, that we received the email, and that the fact that we're voting on this tonight has no, his concerns can still be addressed separately from us acting on this particular matter.
Yes, we're just looking at the zoning for the use of the property and not how anything is going to transpire down the road as far as actually building a building.
If there is a conflict, it'll come up in the contracting for the work to be done, not in the rezoning.
And you were not copied on this email, Steve, so I'm going to forward it to you and to Bill as well.
I read read it, but now I can't find it. Would you put me on there too again so I can have another copy?
Yep. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call.
Counsel Morris,
Yes.
Counsel DeBrito,
Yes.
Counsel Klepak,
Yes.
Counsel Green,
Yes.
Counsel Foss,
Yes.
Counsel Frankie,
Yes.
Counsel Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to ordinance 209-2021.
An ordinance providing for amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second. Steve, can you summarize this one?
Yes, this ordinance, this zoning amendment has to do with permitting the construction of solar farms in the airport zone. You may recall that there was a conversation about the difficulty of having to rezone property in the airport zone itself to allow for solar farms. This takes that process away and makes the permitting of those solar farms much simpler than it was.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call.
Counsel Morris,
Yes.
Counsel Olivera,
Yes.
Counsel Klepak,
Yes.
Counsel Green,
Yes.
Counsel Foss.
Yes.
Counsel Frankie,
Yes.
Counsel Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay. Moving on to resolution 210-2021.
A resolution providing for authorizing the city manager to include a specification on certain sales of city property.
Move to adopt.
Second. Go ahead, Steve.
This resolution puts on the record the city manager's ability to include a right of first refusal as a requirement for sales of city property that is not in residential districts. And it's something that we've talked about informally before. And the purpose of it is to make certain that if a property that we've sold to someone that is or is not developed, if it goes up for sale again, the city has an opportunity to retrieve ownership of the property and determine what happens to it after that.
Councilor Foss.
We should probably add just a simple clarification to that of properties not acquired through lien. I can think of a situation where we've acquired a piece of residential property for a tax lien and then auctioned it back out. That would make it, the way I read it right now, that we at one time owned that piece of property in a residential. So maybe we can make it simple and to commercial.
Well, it
does-
says commercial and industrial zones, right? So, I mean, I don't know.
I know, but
If we acquire a residential property, I don't know that that would be covered. I mean, I don't think that fits here.
Well, and the other thing I would point out is that, I mean, if somebody wants to do something that's consistent with our zoning, who are we to stop them? Councilor Frankie.
I just wondered, Steve, if this is not one of those things that is relatively common in terms of municipal property sales.
Somebody help me with that, I couldn't
He said
understand it.
he wants to know if this is something that's relatively common procedure with municipal property sales.
Not so much with municipalities, but for those who are concerned about the future use of land that they sell, it's a very common practice. And the purpose that for putting it into my kit to be used in our economic development effort is to make certain that whatever plan we have for developing the various industrial parks and the other industrial property that we have in town stays on track with our controlling what happens to a second or third or fourth sale of property, so that we don't have a parcel that gets used in one way in its first existence under a new owner, and then in a very different way perhaps under its second ownership that may be inconsistent with our overall economic development strategy.
And it would be, obviously, if we were going to reacquire a property, the council would have to approve.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Green?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be curious to hear an example of how this would serve a public purpose as far as land use goes, and especially regarding a timeline. You know, if a property is purchased and then developed, it could be quite expensive for the city to acquire. So I'm wondering if there is an example you could give where this would, serve a public purpose.
I have a very good example.
Great.
The Casella facility opposite the airport terminal building is one piece of property that if it goes up for sale, we can compete for the sale, but it doesn't mean that we would be able to buy the property back and put it to a better use than it is now. This provision, if it were written into a purchase and sale agreement, would go into the deed, and then the city would have the right of first refusal to pay whatever the best offer is that somebody has in writing from another party. We don't have to use it, but it gives us that option.
And to be clear, this would just be on future sales. It's not retroactive. Any other questions from the council?
Well, just one other comment to address Councilor Green. The first refusal idea is just to put the city at the head of the line if the property is offered up for sale. It doesn't require us to buy anything. It simply gives us the opportunity to move to the head of the line.
I understand that. I guess I'm also just wondering, you know, it seems tied to this issue of development. You know, if someone purchases land with the idea that they're going to, say, install a solar farm and they don't do it, and then they sell, and then, you know, I can understand why, and then they want to sell it to, I don't know, someone who's going to use it for some other purpose. I could see why the city would want to acquire the land, but but you're saying that this isn't tied to any failure to develop according to a plan or anything like that, and there's no timeline on it. So we could sell some land to someone, they could put up condos, and it could go from 200,000 to $1 million, and then we would have right of first refusal if they sold it.
Well, right, but we'd have to match the best offer that they have from somebody else, and it would have to be approved by the council.
Right.
So it leaves us options. I do sort of agree that, I mean, again, if somebody wants to, if there's a problem with our zoning, we need to address that. If somebody wants to do a project that's consistent with our zoning, I'm not sure the city should be stepping in to get in the way of that by buying a property, but hopefully.
Yeah, it's like, I really, I mean, I like the idea of the city getting involved to protect its interests in terms of future land use, for sure. I wonder if, you know, I think it merits further conversation as to how the city can do that. And, so, yeah, but just kind of interested in the ramifications of it as well, and particularly, you know, has any impact on depressing sales. If there were conditions, it seems a little bit like, as you know, sort of extra layer of some sort of zoning restriction or condition. Anyway, I have no serious objection. I just wanted to know more about the reason for adopting this and possible implications of it.
Let me offer another example. If we were to sell property, let's say in the in such, we had 3 or 4 very compatible businesses side by side or across the street from each other that were all clean operations in the sense that they don't make a lot of noise, they don't make a lot of dust and create debris and that sort of thing. And you know, maybe some have buildings, maybe not all of them have buildings, but one of those lots comes up for sale, and and the party that buys that lot wants to put on it a construction debris reprocessing facility that is allowed by zoning, but is really incompatible with perhaps what we're trying to do with that industrial park. We want to have some say in that, and to just stamp our feet and say we don't want you to do that isn't going to work. But if we buy the property back, then we can look for a buyer who will put in an operation that's compatible with the neighborhood, compatible with our long-term goals on economic development, and hopefully more tax revenue generating to help ease the burden on the residential side of the equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the council? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, move to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes,
sorry, it's the Brito.
that's okay.
I apologize. Councilor Klepak,
Yep.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay. Moving on to Resolution 211-2021.
A resolution providing for issuance of a marijuana registered caregiver license to caregiver number 7.
Move to adopt.
Second. Steve or Patty. Patty, can you just explain the process for applying for one of these licenses?
These type of licenses are allowed through the marijuana ordinance, but state statute specifically makes confidential the information about the caregiver, their location, their name. So we do license them, but we keep that information confidential. So they're only licensed with subsequent numbers.
But what do we do? Any sort of background check or?
That's done through the state level, and if they get state approval, then we authorize it locally.
All right. Any Councilor Frankie?
Go through it's as typical code enforcement procedure for these operations, does it not, Patty?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Yes, we go through the code office to make sure that that is allowed at that location. And fire. Yep.
Any other councilors? Anyone from the public?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss.
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Resolution 212-2021.
A resolution providing for authorizing issuance of a marijuana registered caregiver license to caregiver number 8.
Move to adopt.
Second. Any discussion on this one? Nope. Moving to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yep.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss.
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay, and then that brings us to the end of the regular agenda. We have 2 items that we can bring up if there's a motion to waive cloture.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of waiving cloture to add Resolution 213-2021 and Resolution 214-2021 to the agenda?
Don't let me smack him.
Should we do a roll call?
Yes.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss.
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Resolution 213-2021.
A resolution providing for approval of lease amendment land at LaFleur Airport.
Move to adopt.
Second. Steve, can you explain this?
This is a lease for a concrete pad in the immediate area around it that is opposite the tarmac at the airport from the maintenance building. It's been there for over 20 years. So it's been owned by one party for that period of time, and it's served as a storage area for airplane parts and that sort of thing by the previous owner. The owner was interested in selling it. Our airport manager was aware of another hangar owner at the airport who was interested in buying the pad. The pad is a physical structure that we don't own. And what goes along with that is the land lease. This is the lease for that footprint. The use that it's going to be put to is to construct another hangar in which a company that already is housed at the airport is going to detail and paint aircraft. So it's a good use, and it's very suitable to being across the tarmac from the maintenance building.
Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, roll call.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council DeBrito,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss.
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Resolution 214-2021.
A resolution providing for ratification of collective bargaining agreement commanding officers union.
Move to adopt.
Second. Do you want to summarize, Steve?
This is a contract with our commanding officers union in the police department. It's one that the city's bargaining team that includes myself, Chief Massey, Deputy Chief Bonney, our HR director, Mrs. Green, and Councilor Frankie have all worked on this as a team. We're very proud of the outcome. We have a good wage schedule that we bargained into this contract that shows or recognizes the worth and value of the commanding officers in the police department. Many of you don't know that our sergeants in the Waterville Police Department do both the direct supervisory job of sergeants in other police departments, but they also take on a number of the administrative tasks that are typically left to lieutenants and captains in other departments. So in this contract, we've recognized that value and have consistent with that. It also makes that level of police officers in the Waterville Department, those positions, more competitive in the region than they have been in the past, and that's a measure in our favor to retain those officers as part of our police team. Chief, did you want to add anything to that, or BJ?
I think it was a very good contract, and I think it recognized the work that our sergeants do, and as the boss had said, it actually recognizes them for all the work they do for administrative tasks, and that helps our operations. Without them doing that, all those tasks would fall to the deputy chief and I think it would be kind of overwhelming. So they do a great job. They certainly deserve this. They certainly deserve to be recognized, and I think it's a good contract for both the bargaining unit and the city police department.
I want to thank the team for the work that they've done. They were very analytical and very professional in their approach.
Any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Frankie?
I would just like to put out a special note of recognition for Director Green, who did an awesome job putting together the numbers and understanding all the different ramifications of the different proposals that the union made, as well as our responses. I think she deserves a big round of
One of our many amazing city employees. Any other comments from the council? Any comments from the public? All right, roll call.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council DeBrito?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yep.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Absolutely, yes.
Council Frankie?
yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay. Councilor updates. Councilor Klepak.
Okay, well, just a little bit about your favorite topic that I talk about, brown-tailed moths. I submitted all that paperwork to the CDC, got the letter from Code Enforcement Officer Dan, and I got the letter from the Forest Service, the State Director of the Forest Service, Allison Canody, and I sent that in. Hopefully by no more than a week, we should have that piece of the puzzle secured. In the letter from the Canody, the head of the Forest Service, the survey that the Forest Service had conducted for this year for the city of Waterville indicates that there are a minimum of 276 heavily impacted in the city of Waterville. So yeah, 276 acres are heavily impacted, and then they had some points check spots that had several that showed webs between 10 and 100, several more in the city between 100 and 500 in one site, and there's even what they picked to survey in the city that had in Winslow, just across the bridge, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 in one tree. So problem's real. We're moving forward. I'm done. Unless you have any questions. Oh no, wait, Steve. I would request that at the next council meeting during the manager's update, that you update me on any of the progress that's being made by the various members of the departments in that month-by-month plan that I had outlined. If you need me to go through that with you in more detail, I will, but I'm not going to do it here unless you ask me to.
Well, and I just want to thank you, Tom. Actually, when I was out getting signatures to get on the ballot for City Council, this did come up at several doors that I knocked on. So it is an important issue. I know our eyes kind of roll when you start talking about it, but thank God we have you, because I don't know who else would do it. So thank you for all the work.
My eyes don't roll. We love you just the same, Tom.
Yeah.
Any other counselor updates? Counselor Green.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to update folks on the work of the Housing Committee, which has been meeting twice a month since the beginning of June. And it's an amazing, energetic, and a resourceful group of people. We've been talking about a lot of different issues. We began by reviewing some of the studies that exist, the data that exists. We really don't want to reinvent the wheel here, but if we went back and looked at the 2002 housing study that was commissioned and found that very little had changed. And so we're really looking to find some real solutions to address a variety of housing issues in the city. And that includes everything from homelessness to the shortage of housing stock at every level and in every neighborhood. We've had several guests come and speak with us. We've had a couple of different people from KV CAP, the Waterville Housing Authority, KV COG, as well as a local developer. So one of our goals is really to bring together those who are working on this issue in different silos and have a conversation so that we can collaborate and solve some of these issues. So we've really we're focusing on a few really key areas. Trying to stimulate new construction, finding funding sources, both private and public, working on neighborhood revitalization. So it's not just about the number of units there are, but what do the neighborhoods look like and how are they working for the people who live here in Waterville? Education on everything from home ownership to how to be a good tenant. And then, as I mentioned, collaboration with all of the groups in this area that are working on increasing housing, which is becoming the critical issue right now, I think, for people, especially with the lifting of the eviction moratorium. So we want to widen the conversation and bring all of you into it. So there are also plans underway to host a housing conference, which will be coming sometime later this fall. We have some really exciting plans for that and some great speakers. And again, this is addressing issues across the board in the city, from every neighborhood and every economic level. So stay tuned for more info, and any questions, just reach out to any member of the committee. Thank you.
Any other counselor updates? Moving on to community notes. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on an item that was not on the agenda?
Looks like Claude had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Claude. Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to make a quick comment to Steve and the rest of the staff that he mentioned earlier that the vaccine mandates are starting to percolate down. And I think it behooves our city leadership to encourage people to get vaccinated. It's free, and it helps save everyone. And the more people that get vaccinated, the quicker we can get back to business as usual. Thanks.
All right,
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna second that.
Have a great night.
Love you all. Have a beautiful week.
Too, Tom.